morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is handicapping. And we all have talents and skills and advantages, blessings, and often are apologetic or diminutive about these things. And we handicap ourselves and thereby keep ourselves small and keep ourselves from shining our unique light. And it's an interesting phenomenon. It's an interesting thing to be looking at. So that's what our conversation will be today. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning, and so good to have everybody else who's joining us. Before we get started, let's take, hi, Gia. Welcome. So good to have you joining us as well. Before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together and vigorously rub your hands together to feel all those sensations, the friction, the motion, temperature, pressure, and all the tickling and tingling that happens when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome. Good morning, Robin. So good to have you joining us. So we're talking about handicapping. And this is such a rich conversation, I think. We handicap ourselves in all kinds of ways. We handicap ourselves through conversations, telling ourselves that we're not good enough or we're not worthy. And this is a pretty typical way of handicapping. And I want to talk about more the arena of handicapping where we handicap ourselves around our gifts. So when we are gifted, we are all gifted, by the way, with different talents, different skills, different awarenesses, different perspectives. We all have our own unique gift that we're here with. And what happens is that people often feel a level of guilt or embarrassment or apology around their gifts. So, for instance, if somebody says, "Oh my gosh, you are so smart," you might say, "Oh no, I'm not really." So you'll mitigate to be apologetic somehow because we don't want to be different or we don't want to stand out, or sometimes we think that if I'm my intelligence or my beauty or my talent eclipses somebody else. So we operate from this sort of scarcity mindset where if I have whatever talent, skill, intelligence, beauty, money, whatever, that my having that means that you have less, or that my having it means that somehow in comparison you are less than. And rather than allowing all of our talents and all of our skills and all of our advantages to uplift everybody. And so I think that this is a really interesting phenomena for us to take a look at. And I have an analogy after I talk about this story, and I've spoken about it already once, but this is in a little bit of a different context where I have multiple clients who are really good at manifesting, actually. But this one client is aware of their ability to be able to create transformation and catalyze change. And this is sort of a nuanced aspect of it. We were talking about them essentially being a wizard. And what they would be doing, what they did a lot was they put their attention toward kind of, I won't say lost causes, but kind of impossible causes, like trying to fix all the ills of the world, essentially. And the thing about trying to fix all the ills of the world is that there's always more, right? So it's like playing whack-a-mole. And so rather than this whack-a-mole type engagement, what we were looking at is, well, what would it be like if you just made magic? And the person was feeling like, well, this magic, I have this capability, and is it selfish for me to make my magic? And we were talking about how that magic making capacity is this person's gift. And that they're sharing that, they're doing that, they're making that magic is something that they're expressing into the world, that they're giving. They've received this gift, they're giving this gift to the world by making the magic that they make. And one of the ways that this person handicapped themselves was by focusing on all these things, that the whack-a-mole kind of things that would never get truly resolved. When we're busy fixing problems, we're not able to be focusing on creating something better. It's kind of being mired in the past rather than generating something new that makes the old problems obsolete. This is a Buckminster Fuller quote, is something to the effect of, don't try to change things that are broken, create something that is better so that the old thing becomes obsolete. And so the way that this wizard was handicapping themselves was by focusing on all these problems rather than really generating new magic. And I think that's an interesting, nuanced look at ways that we might be handicapping ourselves. We might be handicapping ourselves by allowing other people to be critiquing and moderating our dreams, for instance. We might be handicapping ourselves by binding ourselves to others, that like by putting the needs of others above ourselves. Now, this could sound really selfish and self-centered, and that's not where this is coming from. But and I believe that if we follow our vision, if we follow our dreams, if we follow our hearts, that really ultimately that is going to be in service of our purpose. Now, I'm not saying to be oblivious to the needs and of others. And what I am saying is that so many of us just subvert our soul song to serving smaller masters, shall we say. So the smaller master being a problem, this chasing after all these iniquities and problems rather than creating a new context, for example. So it's interesting. I was speaking with somebody about a person who is an incredible catalyst for change in the world. And they also, in the process of creating this change, they also create a lot of chaos, which maybe is sort of a natural thing. But anyway, there's a lack of concern or consideration for the chaos that they're creating, essentially. Like, and what the person I was speaking with said is that it's almost like this person's impervious to feedback, that they just do what they do, they're doing their thing, and it doesn't really matter what people say or think, they're doing what they're doing. And it's very interesting because it's creating a lot of upheaval and frustration in an organization that's supporting this person, because they're not recognizing the ramifications of the actions that they're taking on the organization. However, it may be that it's that very thing that makes this person so maddening that is the source of that person's success. Now, this is an extreme where there seems to be very, very little room for any of that other outside feedback, whether it's about relationships or business or anything. But it's maybe that the source of that person's capacity to make an impact too is because they are single-minded in what they're doing, and they're willing to just let the world around them fall apart as they create this new world. And it's kind of a fascinating thing to consider, that maybe this thing that is a social failing, in air quotes, I guess, where there's a lack of social consideration and a lack of self-bridling or bridling at the advice of others. There's this unbridled expression and motion that is unimpeded by input. And it's kind of a fascinating thing. It's maybe some kind of pathology in its way, and yet there's this incredible magic that is being made at the same time. So it's an interesting thing to be looking at. I'm looking at it here without a determination, without without a verdict, is what I mean by determination. But it's a really interesting thing to look at how we handicap ourselves based on what other people are going to think, or what other people say, what other people's opinions might be. So Robin says, I've allowed humans to influence my gifts when they first come to me. I denounce them, thinking that I wasn't of God as I was told, even though I gave credit to being a blessing. Let's see. I have allowed humans to influence my gifts when they first came to me. I denounced them, thinking that I wasn't of God as I was told, even though I gave credit to being a blessing. So Robin, I'm guessing that you have certain gifts of seeing or presencing or of healing, And when you first received them, you allowed other people to influence your thinking about those gifts. And it sounds like perhaps you've transited through that to take ownership and step into those gifts. That takes tremendous courage, and being able to sort out and sift out the noise, to relieve yourself from the noise of everybody else's opinion and judgment and the social assessment, because our social norms are exactly that. They're norms. They're things that or practices or processes or beliefs that are often the things that are keeping us stuck. And so to be impervious to that in its way is maybe being some sort of sociopath on some level, but that maybe that can be for good as well, in that it's like, no, I'm clear about this vision, and whatever those opposing forces are, I'm not going to allow them to impede the expression of this full vision. I don't know. It's something that we get to be in inquiry around. It's so interesting. So Rosalind says, are handicaps intentional or subconscious? I think that they're typically not conscious, because I don't know too many people who would necessarily deliberately handicap themselves, recognizing that they were handicapping themselves. They may think that they're being considerate, or they're being respectful, or they're being generous, or whatever. But I don't think that if they recognize these behaviors as handicapping, that they would necessarily do that consciously. And then Rosalind says, like, the flow out of a house is restricted if a kink out of a hose is restricted. If a kink or bend reduces the flow, the person using the hose doesn't look for the restriction. So exactly, we don't even know that we're restricting ourselves. We don't even know, like, we have these social norms, we have these social expectations. And when those social expectations are defied, there are consequences, right? And so there can be consequences of being othered, right? Of being expelled from a group, for instance. There are social consequences when we ignore these constraints. And this, for people who are visionaries that are actively engaged in creating these visions, the people that are really catalyzing change, maybe they are just like oblivious to the constraints of the existing system. Maybe by being oblivious to those constraints, they're able to create miracles. So doesn't mean they're an easy person to be around, but maybe that's not their function. Maybe their function is just to create this disruption and change, and let other people pick up the pieces. I don't know. It's a fascinating thing to consider, to see the change that this one person is creating in the world, and the reach that this person has. It's fascinating also to know that what's happening behind the scenes is, people are scrambling and in chaos, trying to support the efforts that this person is catalyzing. So, it's such an amazingly fascinating dynamic when we look at how we express in the world. I remember when I first made the commitment for myself around the eco park, I told somebody about it, and that person said, it's never going to happen. And, oh, you're never going to do that. You're never going to make that happen. And I said, watch me. So it was very interesting. Very interesting. I could have just right then and there shut myself down. I could have right then and there shut down my dream. And instead, that catalyzed me. But I could have used that as an excuse to handicap myself. Or people telling you when in the face of your dreams, oh, that's crazy, that's ridiculous, or that's a crazy idea, or you're selfish. So this notion of selfishness is something that is worthy of conversation too. That's a whole big other conversation, I think, because there are so many dimensions of selfishness. And some levels of selfishness are toxic, and some levels of selfishness are really purely healthy. And all the dynamics around that are really fascinating too. When we're perceived as selfish, it's because somebody's needs or desires or wants, somebody else's needs or desires or wants aren't getting met. It's interesting. It's interesting. I'm totally fascinated about this thing about handicapping ourselves. So when, like, this person with the magic felt that, well, if they have all this magic, it's almost like if they have all this magic, it just shows up how other people don't. So they become shy or apologetic about using their magic because other people don't have that ability. Well, is that really what we should be doing? The analogy, and I know I've spoken this with you before, but I think it's worth really sort of hammering home. If someone has a beautiful voice, is their singing taking away from me because I don't sing so well, or is it a gift to me to be able to hear the glory and the gorgeousness of that voice, right? So Rosalind says, meditation helps you remember what you are, who you are, and what you came here to be. Yesterday's topic, what is clarity? Tapping into intuition and signals. Yes, yes, yes. Meditation, I think, also signals from a feeling or instinct, is to complete what Rosalind was saying. Yes, and when we're talking about clarity and are really connecting with our soul song and our purpose, we can often handicap ourselves around that by telling ourselves stories like, I'm not smart enough, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm not enough that. We tell ourselves all kinds of, I don't have the skills, I don't have the talent, I don't know how, I'm whatever, all these stories, ways that we handicap ourselves and stop ourselves from our fullest expression and from really shining. And it goes back to that quote that's credited to Marianne Williamson, who am I to, I can't, I'm not going to quote it properly, but essentially, who am I to shine? And the response that she creates to that is, who am I not to? How, good morning, Sally. Welcome back. It's great to have you with us this morning. We're talking about handicapping, and I invite you seriously to look at ways in which you handicap yourself through limiting beliefs, through your deference to others. I can't take care of the things that I want to take care of and need to take care of for me in my life because of everybody else. What are the excuses? What are the ways that we shut ourselves down, even if it's things like tilting at windmills, like chasing after hopeless causes rather than really directing our attention to creating something new and expansive. So this is a really, really, really valuable conversation. And it's really valuable for you to engage in looking at, well, how have you limited yourself? How have you handicapped yourself? And if you look at that, if you bring that to awareness, then that then gives you the opportunity for choice around whether you want to continue handicapping yourself or not, or maybe embrace patterns and behaviors and actions that are in greater alignment to your essence, with your essence, and with that expression. So who would you be if you didn't handicap yourself? And we often will say that we are handicapped by the externalities of life, other people, the circumstances. And the thing is that if we can recognize that those things might be serving as handicaps rather than being at the effect of them, we can maybe transform that awareness into some kind of new action, belief, intention that lifts that constraint to give us the latitude for greater expression. So Sally says, I close myself off from social engagements because someone might normally be negative and I don't feel like trying. I miss out on a lot. So by closing yourself off from social engagements, so maybe the option is to seek out social engagements that are going to be with people that are more aligned with what would be expansive to you. So it's interesting because for me, I really don't have a whole lot of bandwidth for what I call idle conversation. I don't really have a lot of bandwidth for talking about the latest in sports or, I will talk about TV shows if there's something stimulating, intellectually stimulating and expansive around it. But, the water cooler conversation about nothing is not something that engages me. I have a limited tolerance for it, and then my head sort of explodes. And so that's Sally says I don't either, and that's why I'm speaking to it, Sally. So what I have come to is that it's important to up level your social connections. Seek out groups of people or individuals that have more common interests, that are willing to be talking about things that matter to you, things that matter to you. Finding your tribe, Robin says. Yes. And I can say that most of my life I was really lonely because I was talking about things that people didn't want to talk about. And so they told me I was crazy or too intense. And what I'm noticing is that as I talk more about these things now, and I think it's a different time and there are more people that are more committed to waking up. I'm finding my tribe. I'm finding more and more people who are willing or who are oriented to having conversation, cultivating awareness that is meaningful. And at least, I'm attracting those and those people now. And so rather than making myself wrong and bad for having these these deeper thoughts, and these countercultural kinds of awarenesses, rather than making myself wrong. I have owned those things, and am attracting people that also are seeking to create a better world. So it's amazing that when you have that level of self-acceptance to say, you know what, these things are things that matter. They matter to me, they matter to the world. When you have ownership of that, then it's easier somehow to be finding like-minded people. And there are so many people in the world right now that are really working to create a better world. And I'm assuming, I'm making a deep assumption that that's a common value for you, but I feel kind of confident in making that assumption that the folks that are drawn to this work and these conversations are people that are very much about awakening and creating a better world. Correcting or shifting, redirecting our consciousness in such a way that the outgrowth of that is a world that is harmonious and respectful and connected and in service to life. So anyway, that's it for today. Tonight on movie night, I invite you to come and join us. We're celebrating 3 years of movie night from Sustainability Now. If you go to sustainabilitynow.global instead of .com and sign up for our email list, you will get an email tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time that gives you a link to register for movie night, which is free. And tonight we're showing the very first movie that we showed when we started movie night 3 years ago. So we're celebrating 3 years, which is just amazing. I don't know where the time's gone. Thank you so much. Rosalind says, congratulations on 3 years. It's remarkable. We've made over 140 some movie nights. We took a little bit of time off here, so it's 140 some. And we're showing the movie Fantastic Fungi, which is a phenomenal film about the miracles of mushrooms. And it would be a wonderful movie night if that's all that was happening, but we're also going to be celebrating and having people reminisce about their favorite movie nights and the networking that's occurred and their takeaways, and it should be a lovely evening. Thank you so much, Robin. Robin says congratulations. So I invite you all to join us, and I think that's it for today. So I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I encourage you to check out the other awesome programming. Thank you, Sally and Dido. Welcome. So good to have you here with us. And Dido posted a link to be able to sign up for our email list for movie night. Anyway, so much love and appreciation to all of you for your courage, your curiosity, your love, and your commitment to awakening and to a better world. And with that, until next time.